Starting off my list with the LA Angels, I have Anthony Rendon. Before the 2020 season, he signed a 7-year, $245 million contract, and it has not gone well at all. Over 4 seasons with the Angels, he's hit .249 with a .758 OPS. So far, he's made around $130 million, and he's only been worth around $9 million. He had an incident with an A's fan in Oakland back in the beginning of 2023 that led to a fine and a suspension, and he's been on record saying there's too many games in a season. Oh boy. For the Houston Astros, I have Jose Abreu. Before the 2023 season, he signed a 3-year, $58.5 million deal after many good seasons with the White Sox, but his first season with the Astros was, well, not so good. He had a negative Fangraph WAR at negative 0.6, and he was worth negative $5.1 million while making $19.5 million. He's really going to have to make up for it in a big way in 2024. For the Oakland A's, I have Ross Stripling. He had a good season with the Blue Jays in 2022 before signing with the Giants in 2023, but his first season in San Francisco wasn't very good. He posted a negative 0.3 Fangraph WAR this past season before getting traded to the A's this offseason. The Giants are paying a little bit of the $12.5 million he's getting paid this season, but it's looking like a stretch that he'll be worth even anything close to what the A's are paying him. For the Toronto Blue Jays, I have George Springer. This was a big signing before the 2021 season for the Blue Jays, and it hasn't been a terrible signing by any means, but it could be better. So far, he's made about $77 million, but so far, he's been worth a little less at around $72 million for his field value. While he does bring a lot to the team with his veteran leadership, he's 34, coming off of a slightly down season, and he still has 3 more years left on that contract. For the Atlanta Braves, I have Chris Sale. I'll always love Chris Sale for his time with the Red Sox, but overall, the extension they gave him turned out to be a huge bust because of numerous injuries. He was traded to the Braves this offseason, and while the contract was reworked to a 2-year, $38 million deal, his health is always a question mark, so it's fair to say if he'll even be able to live up to it. For the Milwaukee Brewers, I have Christian Yelich. After winning the MVP in 2018 and finishing second in 2019, Yelich signed a 9-year, $215 million extension with the Brewers, but so far, it's been a bit of a dud. Over the last 3 seasons, he's only hit .261 with a .766 OPS, equaling out to a field value of around $63 million while getting paid $66 million. He did have a better season in 2023, so let's see if he can keep picking it up moving forward. For the St. Louis Cardinals, I have Nolan Arenado. This one will probably get under Cardinals fans' skin just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, though. I love Arenado, and he was extremely good in 2023 as he made $35 million, but was worth a whopping $57 million in field value. However, last season, his numbers dropped tremendously as he was only worth $21 million while getting paid the same $35 million. He's about to enter his age 33 season, so questions are there if we're witnessing Arenado entering his decline years. However, I still think he has plenty left in the tank and could very well play up to his salary in 2024. It was also just one down season for him, so I'm not fully ready to write him off just yet, but based off simple dollars, the rest of this contract, which will pay him over $100 million over the next 4 seasons, isn't looking too promising. For the Chicago Cubs, I have Jameson Taillon. Before 2023, the Cubs signed Taillon to a 4-year, $68 million deal, which equals out to an AAV of $17 million per year. However, in the first year of his contract, he was below average, posting an ERA of 4.84 and a FIP of 4.61 over 154 innings pitched. This equaled out to a field value of $12.7 million, with his salary bumping up from $14 million last season to $18 million in 2024. This contract is looking pretty questionable. For the Arizona Diamondbacks, I have Jace Peterson. I'm going to be very honest here. There's not really any bad contracts on the Diamondbacks payroll, but Jace Peterson is one that could be dumped at some point. He was traded to the D-backs from the A's last season, with the A's covering 2 of his $5 million salary for this year. However, he may not even be worth the $3 million the Diamondbacks are paying him this season, as he hit under 200 with a .534 OPS with his time in Arizona last year, equaling out to a negative $3.6 million field value. With Jordan Lawlar expected to come up this season, I could see him just being DFA'd at some point. For the LA Dodgers, I have Tyler Glasnow. There were plenty of contracts to sort through here, but the one that I think is the worst, mainly due to the risk, belongs to the newest Dodger, Tyler Glasnow, who the Dodgers just gave a 5-year, $136.5 million extension. Now, this could very well blow up in my face, and he could end up being great in LA, so I'll call it more of a risk. However, so far in his career, he's had numerous injuries and has only been worth $25 million in a season one time, which was this past season. In his first season with the Dodgers, he'll be getting paid $25 million, which will then bump up to $30 million for each of the next 3 seasons through 2027. Like I said, this is definitely risky, but based off of what we've seen so far with his durability, I would have to call this the worst simply due to the risk, which will probably lead to him being the best contract by the end of the season. If I were to go with a contract that just isn't very good, it would be Manuel Margot, who was traded with Glasnow to the Dodgers. He'll be getting paid $10 million in 2024, with the Rays covering $2 million, but he was only worth around $3.5 million last season and probably won't be seeing too much playing time this coming season. For the San Francisco Giants, I have Robbie Ray. After winning the Cy Young in 2021 with the Blue Jays, Robbie Ray went on to sign a 5-year, $115 million contract with the Mariners, and well, that hasn't quite worked out so far. In 2022, he was only worth around $14 million, but was paid $21 million, and he missed pretty much all of last season due to Tommy John surgery. He was traded to the Giants this past offseason, which sent another bad contract in Mitch Haniger back to the Mariners. The Giants are counting on Robbie Ray bouncing back, but from what we've seen in the last couple of years, it's not looking too promising. For the Cleveland Guardians, I have Miles Straw. After signing an extension for 5 years and $25 million in 2022, Straw went on to put up a season worth just under $17 million, while only getting paid $1.65 million that year. This was mainly due to his good defense and speed, as his bat has never really been that strong, and with his defense coming down a notch this past season, his overall field value dropped to $2.8 million while getting paid $2.9 million. His salary bumps up to $4.9 million in 2024, so he's going to need to pick up the pace this coming season. For the Seattle Mariners, I have Mitch Haniger. Earlier, I mentioned Haniger being traded back to the Mariners in the Robbie Ray deal, and while the Giants are paying some of his salary, it's still not a great situation. While returning to the Mariners could help Haniger get back on track, he was pretty bad in 2023, dealing with many injuries while only hitting .209 with an on-base of .266 and a slugging of .365, equaling out to a field value of negative $1.7 million. He'll be getting a salary of $20 million in 2024, so he's going to have to bounce back in a big way. For the Miami Marlins, I have Avisail Garcia. This one was pretty easy, as Avisail Garcia's contract has been terrible from the word go. After a pretty good season that saw 29 home runs with the Brewers in 2021, Miami signed him to a 4-year, $53 million deal, which is an AAV of $13.3 million per season. In the first 2 seasons, though, he's dealt with numerous injuries and hasn't produced really anything, valuing at around negative $8.5 million combined. For the New York Mets, I have Starling Marte. After signing a 4-year, $78 million contract with the Mets before 2022, Marte has had his fair share of ups and downs. While he did produce quite well in 2022, he completely fell off last season due to many injuries, putting together a season which saw a .625 OPS and was worth negative $2.6 million. At 35 years old, he's not getting any younger and is still owed $41.5 million over the next 2 seasons. Mets fans are hoping for more out of him over the next couple of years. For the Washington Nationals, I have Patrick Corbin. Not only is this the Nationals' worst contract, but it's been one of the worst in baseball for a while now. I'll keep this short. After signing a 6-year, $140 million deal back in 2019, he was very good in that first year, helping the Nationals win a World Series. But in the last 4 seasons, he's made around $91.5 million, but has only been worth a little over $24 million. Yikes. For the Baltimore Orioles, I have James McCann. The Orioles are in a great spot right now, having tons of young talent in their arbitration years, while not really having any big contracts on their payroll, all while coming off a 100-win season. For the Orioles, I'll go with James McCann, their backup catcher. The Mets are paying $8 million of his roughly $12 million salary this season, so for the Orioles, it's not that bad since they're only paying him about $4 million, but the contract itself isn't that great. Just goes to show what a great situation Baltimore is in at the moment, especially with new ownership. For the San Diego Padres, I have Robert Suarez. After coming over from Japan, Suarez had a breakout year in his rookie season in 2022, which prompted the Padres to sign him to a 5-year, $46 million extension. After the first year of that, though, it's not looking too good. While he was good in 2022, he was 31 years old in his rookie season after coming over from Japan, so it might have been a little premature to hand him a contract like that so soon. Last season, his numbers dipped, with his ERA rising to 4.23, his FIP to 4.48, and his strikeout numbers dropping immensely from 11 strikeouts per 9 in 2022 to under 8 per 9 last season. His value in 2023 came out to around $0 overall. The Padres will be hoping for a bigger return on investment in 2024. For the Philadelphia Phillies, I have Nick Castellanos. Phillies fans might not like this one, but Castellanos has not fully lived up to what he's been paid so far with the Phillies. After signing a 5-year, $100 million deal before 2022, Castellanos had a rough first season, which saw only 13 home runs, a 694 OPS, and pretty bad defense. While he did hit 29 home runs and drive in 106 runs last season, his poor defense held back his value once again. So far in his deal, he's made $40 million, but has only been worth $1.6 million overall. If he was a DH, I think Castellanos would be much more valuable, but until then, the Phillies are going to have to just hope for the best with his bat and try to deal with his defense the best they can. For the Pittsburgh Pirates, I have Martin Perez. Like with the Orioles, there aren't really a whole lot of bad contracts with the Pirates. There is Marco Gonzalez, but the Mariners are covering a lot of that contract. So one that I could look at, though, is Martin Perez, who's with the Pirates on a 1-year, $8 million deal. He did pitch very well in 2023 with the Rangers, but he fell off last season, posting a 4.45 ERA, a 4.99 FIP, and was only worth $3.7 million. He's going to have to put together a much better season to live up to his salary in 2024. For the Texas Rangers, I have Jacob deGrom. I hate doing this, but I think you have to go with deGrom for the Rangers. I've said this a million times, but when healthy, deGrom is the best pitcher in the entire universe. He just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and combine that with a whopping 5-year, $185 million contract, this just looks like a recipe for disaster. He should be coming back sometime in the second half of 2024 after getting his second Tommy John surgery, so the Rangers and Rangers fans will be holding their breath. For the Tampa Bay Rays, I have Wander Franco. After signing rising star Wander Franco to an 11-year, $182 million contract, the richest in franchise history, things were looking great for the future of the Rays. However, a little over a year after the contract was signed, Wander Franco was placed on Major League Baseball's restricted list and later arrested for having a relationship with a minor, a truly disturbing set of allegations. While the investigation is still ongoing, the contract itself could end up being one of the worst in baseball history. If Franco is found guilty, the Rays should be able to void it, as most contracts have morality clauses placed in them to protect the teams. If he's found to be not guilty, well, then the Rays will have an issue on their hands, as the Players Association has protections in place for the players. In the end, what was once looked at as a great move for the Rays long term has turned into an absolute nightmare. For the Boston Red Sox, I have Trevor Story. While Chaim Bloom is no longer with the Red Sox, his biggest signing was Trevor Story before the 2022 season, a 6-year, $140 million contract. It hasn't quite panned out. The first 2 seasons haven't lived up to what he's been paid so far. He's made $40 million, but has only been worth around $21 million, as he missed a huge chunk of last season due to elbow surgery while missing some time in 2022, and has been up and down with the bat over that time. While I do expect Story to bounce back in 2024, the contract hasn't been a good one so far. For the Cincinnati Reds, I have Frankie Montas. I know this one hasn't really played out yet, but after getting shoulder surgery and not really pitching at all in 2023, this is definitely a risky investment. The Reds signed Montas to a 1-year, $16 million prove-it deal, which in my opinion is probably a bit too much, considering he pitched only an inning and a third last season and missed a lot of time in the second half of 2022 after getting traded to the Yankees due to the shoulder. Shoulder surgery is always worrisome for a pitcher, but if Montas can show he's healthy, then he's definitely capable of living up to his $16 million salary. For the Colorado Rockies, I have Chris Bryant. The Rockies signing Chris Bryant was a head-scratcher from the beginning, since the Rockies had just traded Nolan Arenado not too long before. So far with the Rockies in the first 2 years of the contract, his tenure has been marred by injuries as he's only played 122 games combined. He's made $46 million so far while only putting together a field value of negative $4.8 million. At this rate, with 5 years and $136 million remaining, this contract has a chance of becoming one of the worst of all time. For the Kansas City Royals, I have Salvador Perez. I know Royals fans might not like this one, but Salvy's contract is slowly turning into a bad one. After getting a contract extension for 4 years and $82 million a couple of years ago, he hasn't been able to live up to it, as he's only been worth $1.5 million combined over the first 2 seasons, while getting paid $38 million combined. While he still does hit for some power and brings leadership for the Royals, his defense is pretty much non-existent behind the plate. For the Detroit Tigers, I have Javier Baez. This one was easy, considering it's turned into one of the worst contracts in baseball. After netting a 6-year, $140 million deal before the 2022 season with the Tigers, Baez immediately went sideways. In the first 2 years of the deal, his offense has completely tanked, only putting together a .633 OPS and a .77 OPS plus with a combined 26 home runs, which is very low considering he hit for a lot of power before with the Cubs. While his defense has been good, it hasn't helped make up for his overall value, as he's only been worth around $21 million, while he's gotten paid $42 million so far. For the Minnesota Twins, I have Carlos Correa. After an offseason in which he failed his physicals with the Giants and Mets due to concerns over his ankle, he ended up going back to the Twins on a 6-year, $200 million contract. However, while he was great with the Twins the one season before signing that deal, he had a lot of issues last season, which saw him deal with a foot injury after failing those physicals, which also led to some bad numbers. Overall, in the first year of his contract, he was only worth around $9 million while getting paid $33 million. I think you could also have the same sentiment regarding Byron Buxton and the rest of his deal, considering he's always an injury risk, but considering Correa is making $200 million, it's not surprising if Twins fans are concerned just a little bit. They're hoping for a better season in 2024. For the Chicago White Sox, I have Andrew Benintendi. After a couple of pretty good seasons with the Royals and Yankees, the White Sox signed Benintendi before last season to a 5-year, $75 million deal. In 2023, while the White Sox had a pretty miserable season overall, minus Luis Robert, Benintendi didn't live up to much in the first season of his contract. While he made about $17 million, he was worth negative $0.4 million, mainly thanks to some subpar offensive numbers and very bad defense that produced negative 10 outs above average. And last but not least, for the New York Yankees, I have Giancarlo Stanton. When Stanton signed a mega deal with the Marlins for 13 years and $325 million, people thought it was worth it because of the monster numbers he was putting up. However, since being traded to the Yankees, he has turned into quite possibly one of the worst contracts of all time. While Stanton has had a couple of good seasons, one being in 2018 and the other being in 2021, he hasn't amounted to much other than that. Since becoming a Yankee, he's made $141 million if we're not counting 2020, but has only been worth a total of $60.5 million during that time. He still has 4 more years on his contract, and with most Yankee fans grown tired of Stanton at this point, it could end up turning out to be pretty ugly until then. So that's my list. Tell me what you think down below. Do you think some of these players should have been swapped out with someone else? Let me know in the comments. But that's all I have for right now. If you can, on the way out, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.